Mwanangu jali haina kinga.
He loved a good song.
Round the Bay of Mexico, where the sun shines daily on a mountain top, I took a trip on a sailing ship. When I reached Jamaica, I made a stop, but I'm sad to say I'm on my way.
His iconic dance moves were admirable. In the readers,
Tendawili!
Raila Odinga lived the life a politician loved by many and equally not so loved by others. And when he died,
sisi natoka kwa Port Kenya, naingia kwa LDP, kutoka kwa LDP naingia kwa Jogo, kutoka kwa Jogo sisi naingia kwa Rembo. Nasikia sisi kutoka kwa Rembo ndio nakuja kwa ODM. Hiyo ni sisi tu. Hakuna hata mtu ambaye anakuwa na mama kama mimi. Sisi ndio nakuwa na mama. Hiyo Raila na maleta watu Kenya tautwa. Mimi nakuambia leo.
The world of those who dreamt of being under his presidency crashed.
Sema Mbemoni na mimi nataka sema sisi tumebaki watimwa na watimwa, sina baba na hatuna mama. Raila amefanya hata saa hii huwezi chapa bibi, ni Raila. Hata mtoto huwezi fanyia ubaya because of Raila, na huwezi kufanyia mtu jirani mbaya because of Raila.
Some stood up and defended his elections like this gentleman.
Tuko na evidence iko hapa hata kwa hii karatasi hii. Sasa tutafanya aje? Uhuru. Hii kitu nchi mzima aone Kenya tuko asina amani, tena sina peace. Nyeza sio Kenya.
And even in his death, the same gentleman was here. In this video, he says he has not slept and has struggled to eat.
Siwezi kukula, hata kulala kutangu Raila Amolo Odinga kufe. Kulala imenishinda, hata kukula imenishinda, ndio naongea na sauti kidogo, sina nguvu.
Born in 1945, Raila Amolo Odinga, Tinga, Jacob, Baba, The Enigma, Word Pain, Simba, Agwambo, Chumaliet, Baba, and Baba again was a force to reckon. Raila Odinga's biography will take the whole day to analyze, covering a fraction of this mysterious figure who troubled President Moi, Kibaki, Uhuru, Ruto, but in the end ended up being in their good books. Like John Allan Namu, an investigative journalist, said in his tweet, Raila Odinga was like an elephant in a dark room where each person in the country touched a part of him but misjudged. Raila's strengths, weaknesses, divisive but deliberative politics, the constant confrontation with sitting governments, and not once or twice, but 5 failed attempts at the presidency were the face of resilience. Without further ado, let's try to understand who Raila Odinga was. Raila Amolo Odinga was born at the Anglican Church Missionary Hospital in Maseno, Kisumu district on the 1st of January 1945. He is the son to the first deputy president of the country, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. If you have been following this channel since 2022, you might have come across videos about Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, the first politician to resign from Jomo Kenyatta's government when the latter made him a ceremonial vice president. His mother, Mary Juma, was a stay-at-home wife, but her contributions to his upbringing were epic. At the time of Raila's birth, his father, Jaramogi, was a teacher at Maseno, a time when Christianity was taking roots in the country. One time, Odinga would take his children for baptism at the Anglican Church, Raila being one of them. Odinga would state that his children would bear an African name, something that angered Reverend Nyende. The Reverend would chase them away, forcing Odinga to write to the Anglican Church main diocese in Nairobi about the issue. The Anglican Church headquarters would give a nod to Odinga's request, but it was not until a European priest conducted the ceremony. Raila would be named Raila Amolo Odinga, while his elder brother Oburu would be baptized Ngongamolo Oburu, and the other brother Agola would be named Ngire Omuodo Agola. Raila would attend Kisumu Union Primary, Maranda Primary in Bondo, and later Maranda High. In 1962, Odinga would transfer Raila to Germany to continue with his higher education. Given that the colonial government resented communism and Odinga, being the Soviet point man in East Africa and closely monitored, Raila could not secure a passport. So, Odinga hatched a plan. Together with another lady named Achieng, they traveled to Tanganyika, as Tanzania was known at the time, where they were issued with Tanganyikan passports. This classified information was leaked by MI5, an investigative body. In Germany, Raila would join Harder Institution and in 1965 would get a scholarship at the Magdeburg Technical School, part of the University of Leipzig, and in 1970 would graduate with a Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering. When Raila returned to the country from Germany in 1970, he found that Jomo Kenyatta had detained his father. Given that Mary was not learned as such, and Odinga had not delegated the running of his businesses to experts, the businesses had collapsed. Raila would be forced to start his own business to support his father's expansive family, and later on join the University of Nairobi as a lecturer. The salary as a lecturer was not enough, and to make ends meet for the Odinga family, he would engage in other ventures and form what would become the East African Spectre Limited. On the 1st of September 1973, Raila Odinga would marry a student at the University of Nairobi, that is Ida Odinga. They would be blessed with 4 children. Fidel in 1973, who was named after the Cuban president Fidel Castro. Fidel would pass on in 2015. Rosemary Odinga would be born in 1977, Raila Jr. in 1979, and Winnie Odinga named after Winnie Mandela.
Down the bay, the mountain top, where the sun shines on a mountain top. I took a trip on a sailing ship, and when I reached India, I made a stop. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way. Won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my world is turning around. I had to leave a little girl in Bondo town.
Would be born in 1990. In 1974, Odinga would leave the UON, that is the University of Nairobi, and get employed by the Kenya Bureau of Standards, becoming the deputy director in 1978. When things were picking up in the family, tragedy struck in 1975 when Raila Odinga's brother, Frederick Odima, committed suicide in the house of Achieng Oneko, who was hosting him. Do you remember me telling you that Jaramogi's businesses had collapsed when he was held in detention by Jomo Kenyatta? Well, in 1978, the family was auctioned, leaving them as paupers with nothing under their name. Under Moi's leadership, the family was not spared. In 1982, Raila Odinga, his father Jaramogi, and others were arrested and detained without trial on suspicion of being involved in the attempted coup. I think I should tackle about the attempted coup that occurred in 1982. Anyway, in 1984, while serving his sentence, Raila's biological mother, Mary, died. What hurts the most is that Raila came to know about the death of his mother 2 months later when a prison warder confided to him. Months later, another brother to Raila, Agola, died shortly after coming out of prison where he had stayed for some time after being accused of causing an accident. So, what made Agola die so soon? Agola was diabetic, and that meant he had to inject himself with some medication which the prison warders blocked and instead chained him to the hospital bed in Kakamega. In 1998, Mama Ida, Raila's wife, was chased away from Kenya High after being accused of being a bad figure to others. That would make the end of her life as a teacher. Raila would be moved from one prison to the next and released on the 6th of February 1988 after 6 years of torture in prison under the Nyayo chambers.
At least for Raila, I know that he picked the heart in his eye through a policeman who during interrogation hit him with a chair in the face.
However, the freedom was short-lived since he was arrested in September the same year and later released on the 12th of June 1989, and on 5th of July 1990 get rearrested again. The final release was on the 21st of June 1991, in which his own father Jaramogi thanked Moi. However, Raila would claim that the same government wanted to assassinate him and he would flee the country to Norway. In Raila's absence, Martin Shikuku, George Ndenge, Philip Gashoka, Masinde Muliro, Kenneth Matiba, and Hamed Bamhariz pushed the Moi government to accept multipartyism in the country.
Kitu mimi nauliza nyinyi leo, ili tuone hawa walio katika siasa, wale walio watumishi wa serikali, sisi tuseme kwamba tufungue, tuondoe ile section ya katiba ya Kenya ya 2A.
Raila would return to the country in 1992 without causing a fuss. At that time, no prominent person was paying attention to Raila. They only knew him as the son to Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. However, one day, he made himself a name not only to Luo Nyanza, but to the country at large. That was the same year he had returned back to the country. His father, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, was holding Ford Kenya's National Delegates Conference at City Stadium.
Wamana Simba ndio sasa atapigana huko kiwanjani, na Simba atalete uhuru, na uhuru lazima iwe na uhaki na ukweli. Hapana ile rongorongo ambayo wanasema maneno pande huu na matendo yao iko pande ingine.
While addressing the people, Raila, who was ironically missing, stormed the stadium with a multitude of rowdy youths, chanting songs and carrying placards and twigs. This manner of defiance angered Oginga, who called out his son, "Amolo, can you tell those boys to stop shouting?" Raila obliged. But that marked the start of an important thing in his life. A new sheriff was in town. That year, Raila would vie for the seat of Lang'ata parliamentary seat, beating Philip Liki, a figure who appeared unbeatable. To bring into context, Liki was vying for the seat on the Kanu ticket, which made he had an upper hand. Since that feat, Raila became the father of multi-party democracy in Kenya. In 1994, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga would die. making Raila fight so much with others to be the chairman of Ford Kenya, with kijana Michael Wamalwa becoming the chairperson. Raila would leave Ford Kenya and Ford NDP. In 1997, Raila would try running for the presidency but emerged third after Moi and Kibaki, respectively.
In light of the foregoing and other overwhelming evidence is available that Moi has desperately manipulated the Electoral Commission to rig election in his favor in order to declare himself the president, we categorically reject the provisional results of the presidential election.
However, he would retain the Lang'ata parliamentary seat. Shortly after the elections, Raila would agree to work with KANU and Moi would make him the Minister of Energy between 2001 and 2002. Raila, who was expecting Moi to endorse him as the official flag bearer during the national elections, would be disappointed when Moi chose Uhuru to fly the flag high.
Kwa sababu dunia hii imeenda ukabila, vyama vyote vya kikabila, na nikaona kwamba yule ambaye anaweza kuendesha kupeleka wananchi kama vile mimi ningependelea wananchi kuongozwa ni Uhuru Kenyatta.
Raila and others like Kalonzo Musyoka, George Saitoti and Joseph Kamotho felt that Uhuru Kenyatta, who was only 38 years at the time, was an amateur and moved away. Raila would ask during a public rally, "Si Kibaki anatosha," which loosely translates, "Kibaki is also capable, isn't he?"
Sema ni kwamba umaskini ambao umetuingilia umeletwa na serikali ya Moi. Haiwezi kusemekana kwa vyovyote, hata ukiwa KANU damu. Huna njia nyingine isipokuwa useme serikali hii ikiongozwa na huyu ndio imekula pesa hii yetu na inajua mahali pesa imekwenda. Huna njia nyingine. Huna njia nyingine. Njia ni hivyo.
Shortly before the elections, Kibaki was involved in an accident, which meant that Raila and others were the ones to campaign for him. Kibaki would go on to win the presidency. Kibaki shortened Raila, failing to appoint him as a prime minister and giving his faction half of the cabinet secretary, as they had agreed in an MOU before the elections. To add salt into injury, Kibaki would go on to appoint ministers from the opposition side such as KANU and for the people. Raila would push for the implementation of a proposed constitution that he, with Kibaki, had come up with, limiting the president's term. However, Kibaki would pull out of the proposal, leaving Raila distraught. In 2005, Kibaki would write a proposed new constitution that made the president have so many powers. Raila would oppose the new constitution proposal using the slogan, "No." If you were around at the time, you might have experienced how fierce the campaigns for the proposed new constitution were. So much propaganda was spewed, with each side trying to pull the crowd. When the referendum was put up on the 21st of November, Raila's No faction won with 57%. Kibaki only secured votes from one province, that is, the Central Province. Following the embarrassing defeat, Kibaki sacked his entire cabinet on the 23rd of November 2005.
I have directed that the offices of all ministers and all assistant ministers become vacant. Consequently, the occupants of the said offices cease to hold their respective offices with the immediate effect. A reconstituted government will be in place within 2 weeks.
Raila's side, the LDP, did not get a single cabinet position, and the Ford Kenya members who were appointed declined the offer from Kibaki, making his popularity with the masses tank. In 2006, Raila with other like-minded politicians like Kalonzo Musyoka and William Ruto would form the ODM. A year later, the party would split months to the general elections, with Kalonzo forming ODM Kenya. Although Kalonzo's departure dealt a huge blow to Raila, he still had the support of Musalia Mudavadi, Najib Balala, and William Ruto. Do you remember the Pentagon? When the elections were held on the 27th of December 2007, Kibaki would be declared the winner, defeating Raila with around 232,000 votes, and violence broke throughout the country. There's so much that went on, and I will cover in another video in depth. Next video actually. After a lot of back and forth, Raila would accept the position of a prime minister, which he served from 2008 to 2013. Would go on to lose the 2013 elections against Uhuru and Ruto.
Kusujudu na kuniabudu hiyo ilikuwa ni yako. Lakini Yesu akamwambia wewe shetani, nenda mbali shetani.
The famous duo from the ICC lose another elections against them in 2017.
Hawa wanatuambia ya kwamba ati watasuzia uchaguzi. Kwani ni nani aliwalazimisha wakuje kwa uchaguzi?
Huyu mzee hana haja ya uchaguzi. Yeye anatafuta mbinu zote za kuhakikisha ya kwamba Wakenya hawatachaguana, na ndiyo baadaye aweze apitie mlango wa nusu, akuje aseme hiyo serikali ya Uhuru na Ruto sasa imemaliza awamu yake, sasa twende mambo ya nusu mukate.
In a controversial election that saw the results annulled,
2017 was not conducted in accordance with the Constitution and the applicable law, rendering the declared results invalid, null, and void.
And re-election that his team objected being carried out. Raila would go on to conduct a mock swearing ceremony, terming himself as the people's president.
Of the high calling, assume the office of the people's president of the Republic of Kenya. So help me God.
An occasion that was conducted by Miguna, a barrister and a solicitor. Miguna would end up being deported and stay in Canada until the end of Uhuru's tenure as a president. Raila would work with Uhuru's government after the infamous handshake, which others call handshake. The handshake would leave Ruto in the dark, and he would form the Tanga Brigade, a term loosely translated to moving aimlessly from one place to another. In the build-up to the 2022 elections, William Ruto would form the Hustlers movement to fight against the dynasties in quotes. The term hustlers would refer to people who worked their way up, something that the majority of people relate to. On the other hand, dynasties would refer to people born in the political family such as Raila and Uhuru Kenyatta. William Ruto would go on to defeat Raila Odinga, who would go on to claim the elections were rigged. The Supreme Court would declare the claims as a wild goose chase. After the defeat, Raila would conduct a series of demonstrations such as this one.
Tuesday, tarehe 2 mwezi wa 5 tunarudi uwanjani.
And this one. And this one.
Siku ya Sabasaba, tarehe 7 mwezi wa 7, Ijumaa ijao, Wakenya wote, Kenya mzima watajitokeza na kusema kwamba enough is enough. Punda imechoka. Punda imechoka. Kwa hiyo watajitokeza, Wakenya wote watajitokeza.
In 2024, the Kenyan Parliament passed a controversial bill imposing excess taxes on Kenyans. The Kenyan youth, mainly comprised of people aged 28 years and below, commonly known as Gen Z, would take to the streets, occupying the parliament and setting some section of it on fire. President Ruto, who had fallen out of favor with the Kenyan youths and general population for failing to fulfill the promises he made during the campaigns, reaches out to Raila to manage the situation. Given that the youths still respect Raila, stop the demonstrations. However, it does not take long for the youths to view Raila as a traitor for agreeing to work with Ruto and even having his closest allies appointed into the cabinet, including Ali Hassan Joho, Wycliffe Oparanya, and Opiyo Wandayi. The appointment of the cabinet secretaries also sees Ruto's deputy president at the time, Rigathi Gachagua, impeached and replaced by Kithure Kindiki, who is just a ceremonial figure.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hey, fire si fire. Fire si fire. Noma si noma. Wangapi wanasema ni noma. Leo ni leo, msema kesho. Imbwekse si mbwekse. Wacha nyone mbwekse.
William Ruto even fronts Raila Odinga to run for the position of the African Union chairmanship and campaigns for him. However, Raila ends up losing the seat. After losing the AAU elections, Raila, whose health is deteriorating, takes a backseat and avoids public appearances. He keeps going to and from hospitals until his demise in a hospital in India on the 15th of October 2025. According to medical reports from India, Raila Odinga dies from cardiac arrest. The hospital also reveals that Raila Odinga had kidney issue and was diabetic. The death of Raila sparked so much emotions across the country, with his greatest admirers and critics putting their differences aside to condole a man who changed the course of the country. A towering figure who commanded so much respect to millions of followers. When his body lands in Kenya from India, masses visit the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, breaching the security to get a glimpse of his casket. The large number of people makes the Kenyan government, which had earlier planned the Kenyan parliament as the place where body viewing would take place. To move it to the Kasarani Stadium. During the body viewing, commotion arises and some people die in the melee, with claims that they were shot by the police. Raila, a figure who had a very strained relationship with the police and security personnel, someone who was treated as the enemy, the disruptor, and the problem, ends up being treated as a king in his death. On the 18th of October 2025, Raila Odinga's body would be flown from Lee Mortuary to Kisumu, on the western part of the country. And I'm not gonna lie, the mammoth of people that came to welcome his body at Mamboleo Stadium have never been witnessed before. In fact, on the 17th of October, people slept in Kisumu City, holding vigil for the day to come. After viewing the body the whole day, it would be moved to his Opoda farm, and on the 19th October, the man who lived 9 lives, Raila Odinga, joined his father, sibling, and son in the world yonder. It's getting emotional at this point, and I gotta end this video. But before I do that, let me give a shout out to Levin Odhiambo Opiyo. He has been sharing nuggets of wisdom on the Kenyan history. To ardent history followers, I will also give it up for Kenya Airways for repatriating Raila Odinga's body from India and giving us this epic episode.
Good morning to you, RAO 001, runway 06, wind is 030 at 05 knots, clear to land.
Clear to land, RAO 001.
The traffic is well clear.
Third, the Kenyan military played a crucial part in ensuring that the movement of Raila's body was smooth. Look at the panoramic view as Raila's body is moved to Kasarani. The Kenyan government also played a crucial role in ensuring Raila got the much needed send-off. Forget about this Ruto's speech in 2022.
Ile kazi moja tu nimebaki naye ni kutembeza huyu mtu mpaka Bondo aende akae nyumbani. Ndio? Ama namna gani? Sisi tutamtembeza na atafika nyumbani bila kujua.
As a sitting president, he would have declined to offer Raila such a send-off, as it happened with Morgan Tsvangirai in Zimbabwe. But out of respect for Raila, Jacom, he gave Kenyans the opportunity to mourn their leader. May all Kenyans who, as John Allan Namo described, interacted with Raila Odinga get the closure that they need. May his family stay united, and may his soul rest in peace. But I'm sad to say I'm on my way, won't be back for many a day. My heart is down, my head is turning around. I had to leave a little girl in Kingston town.